Over the last 20 years, I've tested countless methods and principles to become more effective with how I set, pursue, and accomplish goals. In this time, I've discovered 3 principles from the science of goal setting that increase any professional's output and will boost your effectiveness more than any other methods. With these principles, you can achieve meaningful progress on your 6 to 12-month goals in as little as 1 month. So you might be thinking, goal setting, I already know what to do. My organization gives me goals. That's exactly the problem. When it comes to business development, most people are only setting one of 2 types of goals they need. And it all begins with a theory from American psychologist Edwin Locke. Locke has been called the most published organizational psychologist in the history of the field. And beginning in 1960, he conducted decades of research on the science of goal setting, expanded on in his book, A Theory of Goal Setting and Task Performance. The first thing that he discovered was that goal setting was powerful. It's not a waste of time to set a goal. In fact, you want to set challenging goals. Here's what he found in one study. Participants were asked to complete a specific and challenging goal. For example, complete this set of exercises in 10 minutes with 2 hints or fewer. Other participants were given a similar challenge, but instead of a time goal to complete and limit on external help, they were encouraged to just do their best. When given a challenging and specific goal, 96% of participants performed better when given looser, open-ended guidance. Hard goals produce a higher level of performance or output than easy goals, and specific hard goals produce a higher level of output than a goal of do your best. When you decide to take on something difficult, you often work harder to achieve it. This helps you tap into your full potential and experience a sense of achievement, which boosts overall performance. In fact, Locke's challenging goals are just one part of successful goal creation. Locke's full program recommended goals that are clearly defined, challenging, believed in by the goal setter, receive clear feedback along the way, and are not too complex to achieve. But in business development, I find that the real superpower gets unlocked when you take your challenging, high-clarity output goals and accompany them with a second type of goal, input goals. These are things you can 100% control. Let's take the goal of growing your client list. Maybe you're making the shift and you want to grow your business by getting new work for your firm. Or maybe you've won work in your business for years and you're setting even more ambitious growth targets. You can set an output goal, winning a certain number of contracts or dollar amount of work. But what's even better is accompanying that goal with specific processes that will lead you to it. Instead of doubling my book of business, I'll break that into a list of most important things, people to reach out to, opportunities I'm pursuing. Then I'll break that down further into actions that will lead me to success. My new input-based goal might be to send 1 email a day to people on my target list, with each email offering a way to be helpful to them. The offer of helpfulness could be anything valuable to that person. A brainstorming session, short facilitated workshop, review of trends I'm seeing in the marketplace, whatever would make sense to be helpful to that person. This would add up to 60 or more proactive offers of helpfulness a quarter. Now, if I do my outreach, which is in my complete control, I've completed my input goal. An ambitious output goal is motivating, but achieving your input goals regularly is even more motivating. That's why you want to do both things. So first, set a challenging, specific business development goal you really believe will grow your career. Second, Pair that with something you have 100% control over, something that, if done over a long enough period of time, you'll move toward your first goal. When I was crafting my book, Give to Grow, I used this method to create my first draft. Every day, I would aim to write a number of words. Each day I completed this goal was a success. And the more I added to the document, the closer I inevitably got to my primary output goal of finishing that manuscript. This is important because writing the first draft of a book is hard. It's hard because the writing isn't good yet. You keep looking at the work and feeling bad about it. But the only way to get to the second draft is to get the first out of your head and into a document. That's why focusing on word count helped. It pulled me away from feeling awful about my early writing and focused me on getting the first draft done. That first draft led to 20 others and eventually making Give to Grow a bestseller. It's like climbing a mountain. If you step back and look at the whole journey, you'd question how you're ever going to get to the top. But by closing in on small milestones along the way, you're able to make wins and progress along the way. This in turn will keep you going all the way to the peak. Master this process and you'll get two things: a constant dopamine burst upon completing your input goals and an overall increase in likelihood and motivation toward achieving your biggest output goal. But what if you could 10x the boost of satisfaction you get from achieving your input goals? Our second principle comes from prominent psychologist and researcher Teresa Amabile, who was driven to discover how some people experience so much greater motivation and performance in their work. Amabile conducted a study over several years, collecting 12,000 daily diary entries from professionals working across 7 companies. Every day, workers who participated in the study completed a short daily survey sharing about their experiences at work. Amabile and her team then reviewed these thousands of entries for any patterns that might have an especially high impact on satisfaction, motivation, or overall productivity. She was surprised to find that a huge amount of work motivation was the result of a small subset of events that workers recorded. These small moments of victory, or catalyst events, as Amabile called them, acted as pivot points that improved morale across individuals and teams. Amabile generalized this and called it the progress principle. It doesn't just matter what your goals are. For example, setting clear inputs that drive outputs like Edwin Locke suggests. It's just as crucial to be intentional about the way you react as you make progress and complete your input goals. When you complete any small step of progress towards your final goal, notice that progress and celebrate it. When you celebrate a success, you gain a sense of progress. This has a disproportionate impact on motivation, increasing your likelihood of completing new goals. If you've made your daily offer of helpfulness to a prospect, stop and celebrate when you hit send or when you leave the message. Pause even more after you make daily offers for a week. If you get a positive response and book a key meeting, slow down and celebrate it. Noticing an incremental win can turbocharge your motivation and momentum and make the next 5 calls feel effortless. The worst thing you can do is to focus on a negative outcome or a setback. A negative event that's fixated on can decrease motivation even more than progress, a 2 to 3 times decrease in your sense of momentum. That's why pairing the progress principle with both output and input goals is so important. And it's especially important in business development because the timing and size of results vary so much. To be successful, celebrate what you can control, your inputs, your efforts. Because the more inputs you do, the more outputs you'll get. Make more offers of helpfulness and you'll win more work. These two principles combine to jumpstart effective goal setting. But there's a final piece to the puzzle of scientific goal achievement. And that principle was discovered by Finnish-American psychologist and researcher Seppo Iso-Ahola. In his research and work with high-performance athletes, Iso-Ahola observed that many top performers were able to uncover and reactivate the feeling of being on a roll. There were many times where they would feel like they were experiencing a streak of positive events. That success led to more success. Iso-Ahola said this: sequential runs of success are an essential feature of high levels of performance, meaning that better performers perceive and experience the momentum of success more frequently, ride it as long as they can, and as a result, become more successful in the end. This phenomenon is known as psychological momentum, and it's why some people's results go so much further than others. To understand psychological momentum, imagine that you're riding a bike, and anytime you're starting a new project or task, it's like you're on an uphill slant. Those first few pushes are the hardest. Your quads burn, but once you get to the top of the hill, everything changes. You move faster. It gets easier and easier, and you start to enjoy yourself. You start flying downhill with minimal effort. When you get early wins, it's like reaching the top of the hill and starting your downhill slope. This shift in momentum sparks a chain reaction. Confidence builds, skills feel sharper, and motivation kicks into gear. Iso-Ahola discovered top performers find ways to push themselves past the initial effort of starting and establish a sense of momentum. Once you start experiencing the beginning of a streak of successes, that feeling often becomes self-fulfilling. If you think your relationship development is on the upswing, you'll start making more calls. You'll take more meetings, and you'll see more results, which will increase your motivation and intensity and create a loop of success. Let's take it back to my example of working on my book, Gift to Grow. Early on, when writing that first draft, I felt sluggish. I set my input goals of word count, and they kept me going, but mentally it was really hard. It was still hard because I knew the quality of my writing was so poor in the beginning. Great writing takes multiple rounds of rewriting, and I hadn't gotten to that point, so I just kept focusing on getting the words down, even if I wasn't proud of them. Yet, I stayed the course. And like magic, after a few rounds of rewriting, things started to click. The words found a rhythm. I started to add clever turns of phrase. I would smile as I wrote and rewrote. It was becoming fun. And from that point on, I couldn't wait to get back to the manuscript and make it even better. At that point, I could shift my input goal to try to make myself smile 5 times a chapter as I read and rewrote. This change in goals from the original quantity of word count to quality of smiles per chapter changed everything. I was flying downhill. At this point, all 3 processes of scientific goal setting clicked together. I converted my output goal to input goals of time and words, a process for inputs that were clear and challenging and led to the outcome I desired. I celebrated whenever I completed my inputs for the session, even pulling in my family and team when I completed a mini milestone like a chapter or section draft. Finally, I stuck with it at a high level of consistency and intensity until my perceived momentum shifted in my favor. Now, I felt like jumping in and working because it felt like I was already winning and wanted to keep the momentum going. And by the end of writing the book, I was having so much fun, I didn't need much external motivation at all because I'd managed to chain together these 3 principles, with each principle building on the last to make my goal setting and performance more effective. You can apply the same idea to making daily offers of helpfulness to build a book of business. But if you want to take things to the next level, you have to apply this goal-setting framework to the challenge of winning more work, bringing in new deals, and forging new relationships. To learn how to do that, check out this video on making the transition from just doing work to also winning it. Thanks for watching, and talk more soon.